You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
This is Speaker Nancy Pelosi today. Let's play that soundbite.
Good morning. The dome of this Capitol has always been a beacon of democracy and hope to America and to the world. Under this dome, our nation has abolished slavery, secured equal protections for people across our country, ended the Civil War, enfranchised women, established Medicare and Medicaid, and met the needs of the American people in so many ways under the dome of the Capitol. Children learn about our country's history and what we are doing to advance their future. Legislators pass laws, press engage in reporting on our democracy, and staff and workers enable all of this to happen. This dome has been a symbol of determination in our country. Remember its origins. Let us recall that the dome of the Capitol was built during the Civil War, and people told President Lincoln that the equipment to build it and the rest was needed for the Civil War, and President Lincoln said no. President Lincoln knew that our country needed a symbol of strength and unity, a reminder of the shared ideals and common purpose that bind our nation, a beacon of hope, again, to see through the darkness. January 6th was a day of darkness for our country. It was a day, as you know, that was called for in the Constitution of the United States for us to validate the presidential election, to certify the results of the Electoral College. That day, one of the darkest, I say again, I'll keep saying days in our history, our temple of democracy was attacked by insurrectionists. You know all of this. The gleeful desecration of the Capitol resulted in multiple deaths, physical harm to over 140 members of law enforcement, and terror and trauma among staff, workers, and members. That trauma is something I can never forget or forgive. The insurrection was called for to impede our constitutional mandate, but the Congress returned to the Capitol under the dome to accomplish our constitutional mandate. Thanks to the courage of the Capitol Police, members and support workers, we showed our country, indeed the world, that we would not be diverted from our duty and that we would respect our responsibilities under the Constitution. Not just the Capitol Police, but other law enforcement as well. On January 6th, and the days, weeks, and months after, the Capitol Dome has been and is once again a beacon of hope, as President Lincoln intended. Today, nearly 6 months later, it'll be 6 months in a little while, many questions regarding the circumstances of this assault on our democracy and the response to it remain. It is imperative that we seek the truth as to what happened. To do that, we believe that a bipartisan commission would be the best way to proceed in the spirit of patriotism and bipartisanship, and to establish an independent 9/11 type commission.
All right, so that's going to transition out to our next topic. So Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing this select committee. But here's what's crazy, Amisha. She allows Kevin McCarthy to pick the Republican members on the committee. He's not going to pick any sane people. He's going to pick the crazy fools. He's not going to pick Ken Zinger. He's not going to pick Liz Cheney. And so my deal is, she's Speaker of the House. She should have said, I'm picking all the damn members.
Absolutely. I think that this is another fail for Democrats because we already know who Mike McCarthy is. At the end of the day, this is a guy who came out in tacit support of what happened on January 6th. This is the guy who came out and supported the what he thought was a stolen election, or what he knows was not, but continues to tell people it was. This is a guy who's going to pick the most staunch alt-right, these conspiracy theory Republicans that happen to be in the party, and he's going to utilize those folks. This isn't somebody who's going to do anything smart. He's not looking to actually have a real investigation. He's looking to sham this thing up and get rid of it as soon as possible, because honestly, Republicans want to move on to the midterms next year. They don't want to talk about January 6th at all.
This committee, to me, is important, Greg, because it needs to happen. There should be a report. Of course, it was Senate Republicans who rejected a bipartisan commission. You already see the Republicans whining, complaining, they're saying to Pelosi, this wasn't bipartisan. Yeah, y'all screwed that one up. You had a shot at that one. But this is what I say. I don't give a damn who Kevin McCarthy puts on this committee. You come out with a strong report. And you know what I think is probably going to end up happening, Greg? There are going to be 2 reports issued. I think the Republicans are going to issue their own, and they're going to sit here and focus on Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And then you got the Democrats issue their own. But this is where, if you're the Democrats, go as hard as possible. First of all, the head of the Department of Justice has already said, Merrick Garland, more than 500 people have been arrested so far who participated in that violent insurrection on January 6th. This is where you put them all on front. And yes, you use subpoena power to force even House Republican members of Congress to testify about their whereabouts and their phone conversations on that day.
That's true. And this is a message directly to our brother Cedric Richmond. Brother, it's time to pull out the long Louisiana knife and start cutting heads off. Because the worst thing that could happen to the White Nationalist Party is for there to be a commission. I mean, I heard what you just said, Amisha. It's absolutely the last thing they want is the commission. See, if the White Nationalists were thinking straight, they would have joined and put together and voted for that bipartisan commission. What Pelosi is doing is establishing a commission. End of story in terms of a win. Because when you put tender-age Matt Gaetz on that committee, when you put wrestler Jim Jordan on that committee, you are keeping alive the fact that y'all are traitors. So when you establish commission, the Republicans have lost. That's why I said this is a message to Cedric. Now the job of the Democrats would be to train every camera in the room on that commission in the hearing. So when they in there talking about Antifa and defund the FBI like Gaetz dumbass was saying the other day, you just put it on an endless loop. And the GOP members like Cheney and them who are tearing their hair out saying, damn it, we should have at least voted to look like we were for the committee. Now we have allowed the Democrats to set up a commission. You stopped it on our side with the loonies, and they got endless campaign commercials. So everybody calm down. This is the time to press the gas, because once you've established the commission, these white nationalists are going to do the rest.
This is where they all have to be exposed, Reese. This is where whoever, Nancy Pelosi cannot put some weak Democrat as chair of this committee. This is where you go hard or go home, because these folks have to be completely blown out and shown exactly what their role was, about what took place on that day. Look, you may or may not have an example of the Republican Oregon who held the door open, a lot of the protesters in. But I don't think there's any doubt why the Republicans were so concerned about the FBI tracking the phone calls of those on that day, because they know there were some people who were in that crowd who called some Republican members of Congress.
Absolutely. But I mean, listen, for historical purposes, is it important to expose it? Absolutely. For moral purposes, is it important to expose it? Absolutely. But let's just be honest. The country doesn't give a shit about, how Republicans and how these white nationalists are traitors to our country. They just don't. Yeah, they support a commission when they're polled, but that is not going to be what's going to make the difference come 2022. So I absolutely support this, for the reason that you have to continue to speak truth to power. You have to continue to expose a light on the Republican Party. You have to continue to undercut the pretext that the Republican Party is using, which is lies about the 2020 election and it being stolen from Donald Trump. You have to continue to expose and debunk that lie. But the reality is that this Republican Party is not going down because of the January 6th commission. People are not going to be that much more soured from it because of the January 6th commission. Now, it's a pretty decent, I guess, foil to this critical race theory that there's all this mass hysteria about. But I do think that this would be something that the Democrats are going to have to multitask on and not think that they're going to rest their laurels on this commission and people being appalled and jumping ship from the Republican Party, because we've seen these kinds of things happen. We saw it happen with the Trump-Russia investigation that went absolutely nowhere. They're still talking about Trump-Russia, and he's off playing golf somewhere and about to be doing tours. He's ex-president, but it's not because of Russia. And they impeached Trump twice. Nobody gave a damn. And so I think that we want to see these moral victories in terms of saying Republicans are bad, white nationalists are bad, they're traitor to the country, they're not patriotic, they don't have a monopoly on patriotism. Republicans are full of shit. They want to suppress the vote with this big lie about the election. But the Democrats need to do more than this. And they are. I'm not saying that they aren't. But all I'm saying is there is going to be some big woosah moment and some big come to Jesus moment that's going to happen in this country anytime soon.
But here's the deal, though. I think what this report can do, and this is the impact it will have. It's not going to have an impact in a hard right districts. Of course, it's not going to have an impact in that. But it is going to have an impact in those competitive districts. You have to force people, Amisha, to be on record. You have to force them to answer the question. Just like when the Republican Party, ran $100 million worth of ads talking about defund the police, and they weaponized that against Democrats. This is an example of Democrats where they can weaponize January 6th, and then when you're running, have to say, do you support what happened on January 6th? Do you see? They got to be pressed on that, so you take advantage of it. Again, a hard right Republican district, ain't gonna happen. But in those districts that are gonna be toss-ups, that are competitive districts, you take a Connor Lamb, his district. You take the district in South Carolina that represents Charleston. There are those places where you can actually use it to your advantage against your Republican opponent.
And those are the places I think that Democrats are using that strategic mindset in
which
terms
is how
of
they
trying to
regain the
push
House,
this.
too.
Exactly. And if they do get those phone records, if they do get, they go through all the tweets, they look at the videos, they go through the conversations that were literally had and the funds that were raised. Because mind you, the majority of people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th didn't get here because of their hard work. A lot of them, this was their first time getting on a plane to go from anywhere. They were funded by many of the organizations that also fund these Republicans, these Republican candidates and these Republican electeds. So I do think that there's something to be said about investigating this and making that deep dive to prove just how close and how demonstratively, I think, structured the January 6th insurrection was, and why these Republicans are trying to duck and hide their tails so much at this point, because they don't want it to come out. If it was a whole lot of talk about nothing, they would be absolutely fine pushing go here. They don't want it to come out because of what you just said, Roland. At the end of the day, they recognize that there are some very tight districts, very purple districts that are literally small margins away from a victory for Democrats and a solid victory for Democrats. They don't want to lose those spaces. And I think that at this point, should that information come out, it is going to change the minds of those individuals. We're not talking about the forever Trumpers. Nothing is going to change their mind. But for those Republicans and those conservatives who are in the districts that are extremely right now tough for them to hold on to, there is an opportunity for Democrats to get out in front of this, to have a successful messaging strategy, to have a communication strategy that actually points directly to how sitting Republicans, actually help to fund, but also help to provide those tours and reconnaissance missions and gave step-by-step instruction to the individuals who performed the January 6th insurrection.
Well, the question then will be, will we see that sort of reaction? That's the question, Greg Carr. And again, this is one of those things. Look, Republicans, we already see with critical race theory. I want to talk about that a little bit later in the show as well. But if you're a Democrat, you don't give up a very good baseball bat or hammer. What you do is you swing it. That's what you do. But they have to take advantage of it. And that's why I hope that whoever chairs this is going to be a very tough, aggressive member, as opposed to somebody who wants to be mealy-mouthed and sort of too soft. No, you got to go real hard on this one and make it clear to people how close these people were to causing harm to members of Congress, but more importantly, also expose the fraudulent views of Republicans when it comes to who always talk about protect the blue and Blue Lives Matter. They didn't give a damn about those cops on January 6th.
No, it's true, Roland. And if elections in the United States of America were about information, informed voters, and logic, then that would be the way to go. But as Reese said, nobody gives a shit. The Democratic Party is trying to work with a bad hand, in part because of the election of 2020. The voter turnout wasn't where it was, so now this is the hand we have. In this country, now weaned on social media and watching reality television, somehow people think that one election leads to a complete victory. This is a long damn haul. So you shouldn't have to explain to people that you're going to have to go out and turn out in greater numbers in 2022 and bring every kind of ID you ever had. No, because they didn't deliver. Hey, your lips, shut them. You about to take the biggest L since the Civil War. And that's fine if y'all all strapped and ready to rock. But since you're not, let's think about the fact that this commission keeps it in the news cycle. Like Amisha said, it may put those purple districts or those red districts that shifted blue a little bit close enough to continue to press. And then we saw yesterday, everybody from Raphael Warnock in Georgia to Gwen Moore up on the House side out of Milwaukee are saying, we don't think voter ID should be an issue. However, we're willing to maybe support voter ID, national voter ID, if it means visiting something that's not in the For the People Act at all, which is all of these bills, 100 plus in 35 states that have been introduced, which are taking oversight away from local officials and even secretaries of state and putting it in the hands of Republican-controlled federal legislatures. So what I'm saying is that everything is moving, and the whole ball of wax could come down to turnout in 2022, which means getting some type of voter legislation through Congress, which means that this commission is just an attempt to keep alive this story, to shave a few points off here or there, and press and put that with voter turnout, and hopefully at least prevent the legislature from flipping in 2022. But this is what happens when you don't go out and participate. This is the hand that they're playing, the hand they've been dealt.
Folks, back to that Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the Black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in Black-owned businesses, the Black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.